Good morning, everyone. I'm Hannah, and I'm part of the clergy team here. I'm what you call planting curate. So if you want to know more about that, I'd be happy to talk to you afterwards. But today we're going to look at these fruitful friendships, and particularly at the story of John Mark and his friendships with the Apostle Paul and Barnabas. So John Mark is mentioned in the book of Acts, and we first encounter him when his home is used as a place to gather and to pray by the early disciples, and he's a very young man at this point. And we also know that he is the cousin of Barnabas, so there's family relationships going on as well. Paul and Barnabas have been traveling around key towns and villages telling people about Jesus. And John Mark has joined them on one of these missionary trips. But something happened when Paul and Barnabas and Mark left Cyprus and they reached the mainland. And Mark abandons them. He leaves. He returns home. And his actions are abrupt and unexplained. We don't know why he left. All we know is that he left. But it could have been for something like he found it really hard when the teachings were challenged. They had lots of opposition. Or it might have been something really simple, like he was homesick. He was young and he missed his home. Now, on a future mission trip, Barnabas wants to give John Mark a second chance, but Paul disagrees, and Barnabas refuses to back down, and the two men fall out. And we see this in Acts 15. It says, "Sometime later, Paul and Barnabas said, 'Let's go back and visit the believers in all the towns where we've preached the word of the Lord and see how they're doing.' Now, Barnabas wanted to take John, also known as Mark, with them. But Paul did not think it's wise to take them because he deserted them in Pamphylia and had not continued with them in the work. They had a sharp disagreement and they parted company. Barnabas took Mark and sailed to Cyprus, and Paul chose Silas and left, and commanded the believers in the grace of the Lord. He went through Syria and strengthened those churches." Now, we're not sure. We might have a video now. Do you think we have? No, we have not. And that is fine, because I've just told you the story. We don't need the video. So we see that this disagreement between Paul and Barnabas means that they part ways. They've been good friends. They've looked after each other in previous times, but this disagreement means that they part ways. And as friends, we do fall out sometimes, but we need to find ways to build strong friendships and rebuild them when we reach difficult times. We need to forgive each other. And it's a bit like having a broken vase. Now, I have 8 volunteers who all have pieces of a broken vase. Look at that, what a troop. Okay, if you all just stay there for a moment, I'm going to say a few more bits and then you're going to help me rebuild this vase. So it's a bit like having a broken vase. And in Paul's letter to the Corinthians, he talks about love. And it's a verse that we quite often hear at weddings, but actually it's not talking about romantic love. These are verses to teach us about how to be brothers and sisters, how to love each other well. And our behavior and words can cause damage. And it's important that we're aware of our emotions, our actions, and the way we speak, and understand the impacts they have on others. Paul tells us that love doesn't include certain things that cause harm, and he lists some of these things that don't belong in loving relationships. He says love does not envy, and envy is when we're wanting something someone else has. Love does not boast, and it is not proud. And that's when we talk about ourselves in a way that makes other people feel bad. It says it does not dishonor others. And dishonoring others just means when we speak horribly or unkind about others. It's not self-seeking, which means when we're selfish, when we care more about our own feelings, emotions, and needs than others. And Jesus tells us as part of the greatest commandment that we are to love each other just as we want to be loved ourselves. It tells us that we shouldn't be easily angry, so we should try not to respond with anger when someone does something. And it says, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. And that's just saying to try and do what is right, to try and think through how to act well. So we've got these broken pieces of a vase, and we're going to try and mend these pieces, and we're going to put them back together. This is a picture of restoration, about bringing the broken pieces back together to bring forgiveness and restoration. So who's got number 1? Lovely. Edie, do you want to try and find a place for it, see if it will work? So number 1, we're going to look at love is patient. This means like putting up with things that are difficult calmly and without complaint, about just bearing with each other. Yeah, I think you could be right. Do you think? How could it be? Well, I think it might be there. Do you want to push it down? Okay, so we've got number 1. Number 2, who's got number 2? Lovely, see if you can find a place for it. It says, love is kind. So being kind is to do good things, to bring happiness to others, acting out of gentleness and goodness of hearts. Oh, that's a bit difficult, that one, isn't it? Maybe we need more pieces. Let's see. You stay there, and then we'll do our best. Number 3 is always protects. And this means does not cause harm. It's a difficult puzzle. Right, I'm going to continue. Maybe you guys could all go and have a go together, and we'll see the mended vase as it comes. Okay, so number 4 is always trust. So you can be relied upon and you can depend on each other. Number 5 is that love always hopes. It looks to the future positively, trusting God that good things will happen. Number 6 is that love always forgives. It makes no record of wrong. It keeps going forward, thinking the best, that things will be good. Love always perseveres. And this means a continuing relationship in friendship, keeping that commitment together, even when you come to difficult points or opposition. You keep loving, you keep going. And number 8, love never fails. Although as humans we sometimes fail, we make mistakes, God's love never fails. He keeps us going. God's love isn't moved like emotions or feelings, but it's constant. And we see in John's first letter, he talks about God being love, that when we live in love, God lives in us. And we also see in John 4, verse 16, it says, God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God and God in them. And then in verse 21, John warns us that whoever loves God must love their brother and sister. Anyone who loves God must also love their brother and sister. I don't know how we're doing. This is a good representation of friendship working together through, perseverance and yeah. Oh, look, they've done it. It's, yeah, woo! Look at that. Well done. Emmanuel, do you want to just hide it away if it's about to fall apart? That's fine, we can do that. Well done, do you want to go back to your seats? Thank you, everyone. Good teamwork, good friendship, perseverance, being patient, not getting angry. It was a good example of that. There we go, look, ta-da! Thank you. So we see the path of love is the calling of every disciple, and that maintaining good friendships with each other is important, even with those we struggle with, even with those we disagree with, or who have failed us in some way. And Paul has given us some helpful advice on how to live well together and how to mend relationships when they are broken. We see that Paul puts this into practice. Years later, Paul calls John Mark his fellow worker. So he says there must be a time where there's been restoration, and Paul sees him again as someone he can trust, someone who can come on mission with him. He also sends a request to Timothy in one of his other letters from a Roman prison. Get Mark and bring him with you because he is helpful to my ministry. And so obviously Mark has matured over the years and has become a faithful servant of God. And Paul has recognized this progress in him and considers him someone valuable, a valuable companion. So it is believed that John Mark goes on to do amazing things. Now, I don't know about you, you might know lots about John Mark, but I didn't know loads about him until quite recently. When he's mentioned in the Bible, they're very small little inserts about who he is and what he did. But it's believed that John Mark is the author of Mark's Gospel, the first book ever written about the life of Jesus. And he's also thought to be John Mark the evangelist, and he's the person who took Christianity to North Africa, telling the people about Jesus there. So through the encouragement from Barnabas and the mentoring and the forgiveness from Paul, we see this empowerment makes John Mark be able to move forward in his faith, even though he made mistakes. And he's really important to the early church through his writings and the way he shared about who Jesus is. Friendships are important, and we need to work hard to maintain them and mend them when we experience difficulties.